Welcome to the Stop Suffering in Silence podcast with your host, Denise Walsh and Rachel Timothy.
Hey. Welcome back to another Stop SIS podcast. My name is Denise Walsh. I'm here with co-host Rachel Timothy. And Rachel has a lot of updates to share with me. So we thought we might as well record it and let you hear the updates that are going on near her in her local area. She's been networking and getting to know people and spreading the word. And so, Rachel, I can't wait to hear about it.
Yeah, so we were talking and you're like, it gets kind of sad when we're always talking about the hard things. And this is all good stuff. It's so cool. So I'm excited to share it with you. Probably the main thing that first comes to mind anyway is I had a meeting with the founder of the Nashville area Scarlet Hope. Scarlet's Hope. And it is actually a national renowned thing for strip club ministry. It started in Louisville, Kentucky. The lady that I met, her name is Tammy, and she actually started volunteering when she lived, I think, in Reno, I want to say. She volunteered with that group and fell in love with the women and then when she moved here to Nashville, they didn't have a chapter here. And so she followed the guidelines and the programs and all of that to open up that same ministry here. And she's been doing it for 5 years. And we had the opportunity to go in and see their little office space. And it reminded Lisa, who's been on here, she went with me. It reminded both of us of our retreat, the Freedom House that we went to, and just the breath that you can, take, and the peace. It was beautiful. They had pictures and encouraging signs and everything all over the place. And they had a lot of stilettos sitting around. And what I learned is that women, when they decide to be done due to this ministry, they will give them their stilettos. And they've got several, probably a dozen sitting around the office space of women who have walked away from the adult entertainment lifestyle, which was so cool. Some of their decorations come from, oh gracious, a racing horse, I think might have been the name of the strip club. So there used to be 3 in this Nashville area, and one of them, they had a great relationship with the bouncers and with the owner. And he was like, yeah, come on in, love on these girls. I think it's great. And they did for about 3 years. And they actually were able to lead the owner to Christ. And he realized that what he was doing was wrong. And he wanted out. And so instead of actually selling the strip club to somebody else who was going to run it as a strip club, he sold it to the city, and they tore it down.
Wow.
And so she was able to go in and take some of the decor and stuff as a, memory of the fact that it got shut down. And so that was a huge success. That guy goes to church with them now. He has been a part of they have a men's defender group, and these men will take the women to the strip clubs and sit out in the car and kind of watch, so they don't have to worry about their car getting broken into or anything unsafe. These men stand out there and also have conversations with the security guards and the bouncers and get to know them. But this previous owner of a strip club became one of those for a while as well. So it was neat to see, there were different decors that were kind of triggering for me in a sense, just seeing it. But it is a miracle at the same time to know that it's from the past. It's no more. And I don't know. I just thought that piece was so cool. You don't typically think that it's going to be the owners or the bouncers that are going to come to Christ.
Right. Well, and that they can make such a massive change.
Yes.
A girl can leave and they'll just find another one.
Yes.
But to have the owner leave and bulldoze the building down. Wow.
Yeah, I mean, it was powerful, and it gave me a bit of encouragement because we say all the time, you have to do something about the demand. Until you end the demand, this is going to just continue. And that's a piece that I just don't have answers for yet. I don't know if anybody really does to a degree, but hearing that hope was pretty cool.
So these girls have hung up their stilettos,
They
essentially.
have.
So I have a couple questions about this ministry, and so I guess you might not know all the answers, but that's okay. So
Okay.
it seemed like, is the goal similar to Bringing Hope, where they go once a month, they get to know them, they bring gifts, they ask questions, that kind of thing? What does the ministry look like?
Yeah, it is actually very similar to Bringing Hope. And the reason we got together was because they were thinking about going into the illicit spas and doing that as their next ministry. And then they found out that's what we were doing. And so they wanted to see how they could support us. And, you know, my next step was to go into the strip clubs. And so to know they were already doing it, I would like to support them. Like, we don't need to have both of us going in, or as far as like both organizations. So, but what they do is they bring gifts, and they actually go every other week, and they go in the evening. So they get together around 9:30 p.m. and they are out until 12:30, 1:30 in the morning, and they will spend an hour or 2 hours with these women. And so it's a little bit different from Bringing Hope, because right now we only get 5 minutes at best with our women. But they are really creating some strong relationships. She shared with me some stories like one of the first times they went in, they had a tray of chocolate chip cookies. And she was like holding the chocolate chip cookies and asked one of the women, do you want a chocolate chip cookie? And the woman goes, I'll give you a lap dance for a chocolate chip cookie. And she was like, no, that's okay. Just want to give you a cookie.
Aw.
But that's what they know. And the more that they get to know them, they find out, they have kids, and this is their way for being able to pay for the things that their kids need.
Mhm.
And we often have this stereotype in our head of what these women are like, and we're usually wrong. She shared how what will happen typically with these women is they'll wake up and they'll take their kids to school in the morning, and then they'll sleep throughout the day, and then they'll pick their kids up from school about 3, and then they got to be at the club by 4:30, and they're there until 6 the next morning usually. And then they take their kids to school and they sleep during the day, and that's their cycle. And so one of the things that Scarlet's Hope is doing is they have their office space, and they provide Uber drivers to bring the women there so they can do counseling if they want to. And but it's just really difficult to find the time for these women to be able to do something like that, to actually take care of themselves. So they have counselors on call, that if a woman shows up and needs counseling, we need the counselor to come like now, because it's huge that she's here, and we want her to get the help that she needs.
I mean, again, you probably don't know this, but I'm thinking, my first thought is, who's taking care of the kids then? That makes me really sad. They really have they're doing this for their kids, but in reality, they also have no time with their kids. So whether the kids are home alone, or they're at grandma and grandpa's house, or whoever, eek. So
for sure.
the next question I have is, you've said that several dozens have left due to the relationship with this ministry. Tell me a bit about the leaving process. Now, one difference between what Bringing Hope is doing and what this organization is doing, right, is that they speak English. They typically have homes and families, and it may be there may be a cleaner line for them to get out. Then when bringing Hope, we're thinking we need to find a safe house. They know no one. They don't speak English. They don't have a green card. There's a lot of barriers. So do you know much about how they, or what the steps are once somebody does choose to leave?
From what I've learned, there was, I mean, I think a lot of it has to do with jobs and being able to find an income that is going to meet the needs that they have and the needs their kids have. And for them, they feel like dancing's the only thing that they're good at. Their body is the only thing that's ever going to get them money. They're not worthy of any other type of job. And so I think through these relationships and conversations, these Christian women are able to share with them that there is options out there for you, and they have connections with people in the community to be able to get them one of those jobs that maybe isn't going to pay quite as much, but obviously they're not going to have to sell themselves basically in doing that. So I think a big part of it is the jobs. Getting the counseling afterwards and making sure that they stay on the path of leaving and not going back. But one of the things that they have found is after a certain amount of time, a lot of the women join their group and will then go back into the very club that they used to work at and will minister to the women in there and be able to share like, hey, I was once where you are. And now, I'm thriving in a totally different lifestyle. So I think that piece is super cool.
Do you know if the girls that are working at the strip clubs have like a pimp or another barrier that they need to escape from?
I don't. And I think what was interesting to me is Tammy said, we need to glean from you what a trafficking situation would look like. So they don't know. They are not fully aware of the trafficking that could be taking place, which I'm sure is taking place to a degree. They don't know, and they need help being able to see those red flags, because right now they just think they're strippers and dancers and
right, and that they are free to leave and they could and that might not be totally true.
Right. I had a conversation with a lady yesterday who's actually a health. What did I say it was? I told you about this. The health food inspector. You know what I'm talking about? Health inspector.
Okay.
She's a health inspector. Anyway, she does have to go into strip clubs because they sell food. So she has to do health inspecting there. But also she goes into some of these spas that we have been going in to minister to, and different Chinese restaurants and all sorts of things. And just an interesting aspect was her being able to walk around and notice signs of trafficking now that she's become aware of what it looks like. My whole point in saying that is there's probably lots of different jobs out there that go into these places and just don't know what they're seeing. And even the ministry of going into a strip club, they just don't know always what they're seeing. And it was so cute. This lady, she was like, I was telling my grandma that I'm going into these spas. And my grandma was like, what, you mean to tell me they're not a prostitute? And she's like, no, grandma, they're not. And it's just totally eye-opening to people. Once you know, you can't unknow.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Wow. And so you're considering going into the strip clubs as well and joining their team?
Yeah. So she was like, do you want to go in with us? And I was like, yes. I didn't think about it. I didn't process. And so then on the drive home, I was trying to process and think yes, I want to. And I know once I get there and I see their eyes, my heart, they'll have my heart 100%. But it has been a very long time it's been since I was trafficked myself that I've been around completely nude women who are having to sell themselves basically to these men. And so I'm sure I will have flashbacks and body memory and different things. So going to have to be in prayer 100%. But yet, even though I haven't met them, they have my heart. My heart is just there. And I want them to know they matter.
Wow. Yeah. So we will all have to do an episode to recap what experience you had as you went in and loved on these girls.
I probably won't hug them. Just saying.
Well, I mean, I have to imagine, and I guess I just have no clue either, right? My hope would be that they're not walking around naked in the back, like totally whatever, but maybe only on stage and they've got a robe or they've got other, I guess, I don't know.
I think probably in the back, maybe they're covered. I'm not sure, but I do think walking around where we will be for the most part, they will be nude. And the way that I have learned is, Racing Horse or whatever that one strip club was where they went and they just got to go in and the owner was fine with it. The two that are now the ones they're going into is not the same. And they have actually had to pay like $21.95 per person to even be able to go in as customers. And then they have their typical table that they sit at, and the women will come there and visit with them, but they're not in the back. One thing that she said in how God provided for them is with one of the strip clubs, they do a fundraiser where if you donate the most canned goods, then you can get a year of like half price customer paying. And so they
Hold on.
did.
The strip club has a thing where you bring canned goods?
Yes. And
For
they donate the canned goods then to like a local food pantry. But the person who gets the most canned goods will get in there for free or for half price for the next year.
What?
I know. But they did that. They've done it 2 years in a row now. And so they are getting half price for going in. But they have to wear.
Anybody's going to get half price. At least it's this ministry.
At least it's this ministry. But they said that they have to wear like a Hustlers t-shirt to be able to go in. And they said, okay, that's fine. I'll wear that if it means I get to love on these girls.
So I guess I'm imagining it differently. So I'm imagining, they're bringing a gift like we are, and they're like, do, and they're knocking and they're going in the back and they're giving hugs and they're like, tell me about your story. But it seems like they're in the audience. They're sitting there. And how do they get the attention of the girls to actually go sit down and talk to them?
They do bring a gift, or it could be a home baked good or whatever. And so I think that's what initially got their attention. But now the women recognize them and they know which table they're going to be at and which night they're going to be there. And so they come and sit and talk. Yeah.
Right. Every other Thursday or something like that. Like they're predictable.
Yes.
Which is helpful, because if somebody actually builds up the courage to give them a sign, like I need help or I want out or whatever, to have that knowledge that this is the day they're coming, would, I think, make it a bit more reasonable that they would reach out. Because if it's just random and it's a surprise, then the woman wouldn't be prepared emotionally to say, hey, I'm looking for help now.
Yeah. And what was interesting too that she shared with me is there was another group that wanted to do what they're doing, but do it in their own way and on their own time. And it didn't go well. In fact, it was confusing to the women because to them, they see all of them as church women. And the way that they were going about it was different. And so they ended up not being able to continue the ministry, which was interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. And they're building up trust with that one group.
Yes.
And so once that trust is grown, that really matters. And you can see it doesn't just transfer to a whole new group of women. It confuses them instead.
Yeah. So it was interesting. I actually learned quite a bit from her. She shared with me their application process for volunteers, that they have to provide and pay for themselves a background check and do a certain amount of training before they allow them to go in. They do team building, different activities. I don't know how often, I can't remember, but she said the next one that they're doing is going to be teaching them how to say no to the women. And because one thing that she's learned is these women are very transactional. And so they they want to be able to give you something, and when you say no, they might shun you for the next 2 months, and that's hard. And so just talking about being able to say no and still be a trustworthy person for them, and still have that relationship building. So I thought that was pretty interesting.
Have they found any of the girls trying to take advantage, ask for money, or kind of step over any boundaries?
I didn't ask that question, and she didn't share anything about that, but I would imagine so.
I'm wondering if I think it's when you first said they need to learn to say no, I'm like, oh, the girls are taking advantage of the women, but it sounds like instead they're offering gifts, and we don't want to take gifts because then they may be expecting something in return.
Yes, but I do think you're right. I do think part of it is them taking advantage and wanting certain things.
Yeah.
And so, and it's then that they have to say no. Even like the counseling, if you get here, we will provide you counseling, but we're not sending counselors to where you are. And just different things that they've had to create boundaries on.
Yeah. Rules around, essentially like a system around, this is how we do things.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because we know, right, as an organization, you can't bend over backwards, because then you're bending over backwards in 30 different directions and it doesn't work. So you have to create a system and say, this is how we do things. And if you want, our services, this is how we do things. And that makes it clear for everyone involved.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's helping me learn some of that too, as we're creating Bringing Hope.
Yeah.
Another ministry that they're doing is a text message ministry. So what they do is they have certain software where it pops up like who has been selling themselves online for the, and they have certain criteria that they put in, like somebody who's been doing it for the last 60 days and a certain radius that they live in. And then she said, usually we'll have over 1,000 just within a certain radius here of women who are selling themselves online, whether it's on Craigslist, or whatever. Mm-hmm. And then they're allowed to send out 250 text messages. And they have to, they don't actually know, I don't think, which ones it goes to and which ones it doesn't. But the text message will say, hey, like if, you don't have to do this. You don't need to sell yourself. And here's, a group that would love to help you. And then they will sometimes get responses back, and they start having that conversation with these women in hopes that they will come in and that they will, because they also have resources. They have toiletry items, and feminine products for these women, and food if they want to come in and get something to eat. Hoping that then they can start creating relationships with those women as well.
Wow.
Yeah.
They're like spam blessing them.
Yes. Yes, that's it.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Any other organizations in your neck of the woods that you've connected with over the past few weeks that you want to share?
There's more on my list. And I can't remember the names of them at the moment, but it's been crazy. I went to like this networking group, and all I did was share. I got like 60 seconds to share what it is that Bringing Hope and Stop Suffering in Silence does. And from that, it has just been a snowball, like rolling and picking up steam, because now we have a group gathering every Wednesday morning, trying to figure out how to provide us with the people and the connections that we need to help the women in the spas. We had an 80-year-old woman show up this last time. Had no idea she was coming, but she's like, I heard about your group and I just wanted to come. And as she was talking and we were sharing some of our needs, she's like, oh, I know a Chinese immigration lawyer. And we're like, that's why you're here. That's it. Yes, we need that. And so it's just been like one thing after another coming together. And there's different women in this group who have relationships with law enforcement and firefighters. And first responders. And so then they're, picking their ears and telling them a bit about what we're doing. And now I have meetings coming up with chief of police and private investigators and the sex trafficking hotline here in our area. And it's blowing up and super exciting and yet a bit scary at the same time.
Yeah, it's really special how the next step continues to be brought. But I love that you have Lisa as a connection point that can attend a lot of these with you and be a support, so you're not meeting all these strangers by yourself.
Right. She's my plus one, thankfully, because I won't do it by myself. And so we've pretty much organized our meetings around that because you can still get those weirdos that pop up and we don't have time for that.
Nope. Now, have you shared what you came dressed as in the dream dinner for our retreat? So I have to tell you guys
that you made fun of me.
I did. It was a very cute outfit. I was not quite sure what she was coming as. But it was a great story, and it's a great future Rachel. And so at our retreats, we have what we call a dream dinner, right? Where we come 3 to 5 years ahead of where we are now. We dress up as if, we talk about it as if, and Rachel shows up in what I think is like a horse jockey. And I'm like, oh, you got a horse. No, but she's carrying a
clipboard.
Yes, a clipboard with a pad on it, pad of paper and a pen. And tell everybody what you came dressed as, and then I'll connect it back to what we're talking about.
Well, I came dressed as if I needed to go to the courtroom and start changing some laws. So in my mind, the little vest was more, listen, I got it from Old Navy and I was so proud of it. And but looking back at it, it was kind of dorkish.
Well, it was cute now that I know. But
yeah. So I wanted to change laws. And there's so many laws out there, as I go through my own court system stuff. And I mean, it's been good, but so frustrating in so many ways. And I'm going to say, honestly, it's been abusive. I mean, like the deposition that I had to go through was awful. And I'm still recovering from that. And so there's just things that need to change in our court system in order for victims to be able to have a voice and to be able to be heard and for justice to actually come to them. There's a lot that needs changed. And so my dream is to be a part of changing some of those laws.
Yeah. So Rachel's Law comes down the pipeline. So what I think is so special, right, is that was in April. And these meetings popped up in May. Yeah. You went to the networking event. You've been connected to law enforcement and the first responders and meeting with the police chief and all these things that are getting you the connections, like you're learning a lot about how things work and how the right channels are, right? Because there's a process to it all. And I just think the how is showing up for you in a lot of cool ways.
Yeah, it is. And, like our Stop Suffering in Silence, we didn't have any speaking events this month. The one that we had planned for next month ended up not working out. And, but yet there's still so much going forward that we're doing. So I think this period of time is a God thing. And I do still want to get back out there speaking again, no doubt. So spread the word on that. But I do see this as a good time to gain strength here for bringing hope.
Yeah. And so for you, and so then you also had your Dandelion dinner. So let's end by sharing a bit about how that went. We do have the fundraiser going on. We have 2 t-shirts that are for sale for the fundraiser for bringing hope and creating the Dandelion product that these ladies could eventually sell. So tell us how your dinner went.
It was so cute. So I set it all up outside and we had little strings of lights up. And I went to Dollar Tree and found like this cute little placemat that had dandelion flowers on it. And I had some Pioneer Women plates from the past that I used that had cute flowers on it, so it made it real decorative. And then off to the side, I had set up the Dandelion store is kind of how I had it set. So when my friends came, I had them sit down and I had created dandelion bread, dandelion lemonade, a dandelion salad, and then we had chicken and a fruit for the side. And it was good. The bread was good. The lemonade, some liked it, some didn't. The salad was, the dandelion leaves for salad is a bit bitter. And so that one wasn't necessarily a crowd favorite, but the bread was. And then for dessert, I had dandelion ice cream, which was actually really, really good. And but when we got done eating, I then said, okay, you guys can go over to the Dandelion and shop. And so they walked over there, and I had a dandelion salve that I had created that is really good for, it's like a healing ointment on your skin. And then I also had a face serum, which I have some of those here. And it's got a particular type of tamanu oil in it that is really, really good for your skin. And it's supposed to like anti-aging and anti-wrinkle. And it actually has a unique, like a forest type smell to it too. But it's made with dandelion oil and then tamanu oil and coconut oil. So yeah, and they all like tried it. And I also had gotten each of them a little dandelion journal. And that's kind of like what my vision is for this store opening up, is everything dandelion, and all of that becoming future jobs for our women who are currently in the spas.
Awesome. I love that you tried a bunch of different stuff to figure out how hard it was to make, what are the other ingredients that you need, what would people actually enjoy. And that's a pretty fun way to test it. So check out our Instagram, you guys. She did a whole reel, a few reels on all the dandelion experiences, and I'm sure there'll be more to come.
Oh, yes, 100%. Yeah. Going out and picking dandelions has become a new hobby.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, if you're listening and you are interested in visiting the strip clubs in your area or going to the illicit spas and you want to find a few people to go with you, join our free Facebook group. We've got a Facebook group where we teach people how to do this. You can collaborate with other groups. You can learn, as Rachel said, you don't just want to show up if there's already a group going. You want to collaborate with them so you're going at the same time so it's not confusing. So we'll post the link to the free Facebook group and down below. We'll also post the link to the fundraiser and for our t-shirts and things if you are interested in donating to that portion of the ministry. And then we also have a 90-day U-turn for survivors coming on up here. We're going to start another round at the end of the summer. We're thinking a Thursday morning-ish. We'll see if it works for girls. We usually do them Thursday night, but so either way, we'll figure it out. But if you're interested and if you're a survivor or you know of a survivor and would like to pass on our information, we have a 12-week, I call it an overcoming self-sabotage course, where we are getting out of fight or flight mode and retraining our nervous system and our automatic thinking to live in the world of dreams. And so it's not a trauma program. We're not there to talk about all of the trauma. The goal is that the girls potentially have already done that in therapy, but it's a next step. It's a what do I want now type of an experience. And actually we found two types of people benefit from it. The person who's talked about their trauma, like I know when we first met, you had already written your book, you were already in counseling, you had already done a lot of the trauma work. This was now of a next step workshop or program for you. But then we've also found people who aren't ready who haven't done the trauma work and are in fight or flight mode like crazy and need this to start calming their nervous system down so they can do the trauma work. So while I say the hope is they've already done it, we have had clients come in who needed to learn these skills so they could eventually process what they experienced. So both and, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Well said.
And so we'll put a link below to email us. Let us know if you're interested. We'll have a waiting list for those that are interested in 90-day U-turn. Pass our information around if you know any survivors. It's not just trafficking, it's child sexual abuse, any sort of trauma. And we've worked with a lot of different types of experiences.
Yes. Yeah. We'd love
So
that.
with that being said, do you have anything you want to add before we say goodbye?
I think that's it. Thanks for listening.
Yeah, well, thank you for sharing and for getting outside your comfort zone and meeting all these new people and building connections. And it's amazing how one thing leads to another. So thank you guys for listening and hanging out with us today. If you're interested in 90-day U-turn or bringing hope, check out the show notes below. We'll add all of the details. And if you have a school district or a church or a helping professions organization, police, judges, lawyers, whatever, we do come, and Rachel shares her story, and we open blind eyes to what's happening, and we've got some availability for that. So we'd love to connect with you in that way as well. Yeah. All right, Miss Rachel, thank you for sharing today, and you guys, we'll see you next week.
Thank you so much for listening to this powerful episode of Stop Suffering in Silence. If you are interested in booking Rachel to speak at your event, workshop, school, church, or organization, then please email racheltimothy.stopsis@gmail.com. If you are interested in donating to the Stop SIS ministry, then please check out the link in the description box or show notes below. Or you can email stopsis@protonmail.com. And finally, if you are currently suffering in silence or you know somebody who is, then check out our website, stopsuffering.org, to learn more about our online programs and resources. We will always recommend that you also reach out to your local resources and find a counselor that you can trust, because nobody is meant to suffer alone. Have an amazing week, and thank you for being here.